no doubt that this team will make it through. They're landing at shifty shafts. They're uncontested. They have plenty of loot, plenty of materials, plenty of mobility with the grapple gloves nearby. Loads of great positions for Surge as well. And so many teams around them are going to be contested. So it's going to be a little bit of a Surge farm for them with Takata. I think it's going to be great to watch them today.
Look, like you're saying, they've got it all, right? They've got the grapple gloves, they got the positioning, they got the on-con POI, but also Vino, but I'm going to go by his in-game name, Joe's Dog, is going to be coming with that confidence from last season. I mean, being the champion alongside Aqua in the most recent Duo FNCS, you know he's going to be feeling a little bit hyped up, going to feel confident, and going to feel good going into today.
Yeah, another spoiler alert. When it comes to Tayson and Uruguay Trapix, it's a guarantee that they will get top 5. And if they don't, at me on Twitter. You know where to find me.
There's a Twitter plug and a good prediction all in one. This man's talented, but I'm with you. I made one tweet before it said my prediction. Tayson Chapix, that's all. Leaving it at that, right? I set them up, told you why they're so good already. If they don't, I'm not even predicting them now for top 5. They're coming top 3 in finals. Like, I'm coming a month ahead already.
I'm just going to go the extra mile here. I'm just going to say first place whole way through.
Okay. Now, that's a bold. Hold on.
All right. Here's the reasoning behind it. Tayson, he has not had his official duos win just yet. And I know somebody with a history like his, he's looking to come in first.
Wow. We've seen this thing happen before with Mini Miner, actually, who made some... No, you're right. That's in the past. That's in the past. It doesn't matter.
I've actually forgotten about it.
That's right. Yeah, sorry, my bad. I didn't mean to bring up that old wound. Don't even worry about it. It's fine. Hey, it's about that time, all right? The battle bus is just about ready for us to get going, which means you need to find your seat on the battle bus, because this is starting. This is Qualifier 1, game number 1 of the FNCS.
Game 1.
Fortnite fam, it's the moment we have all been waiting for. The beginning of a long season of FNCS. My name is Levin2K. I am joined this season by the wonderful Takata, and we will be breaking down all the action from this season in EU for you.
The time is now. Levin, the players have been prepping, getting ready, but it's Qualifier 1, Game 1, beginning shortly. I mean, it's really the moment where we get to see what these players have been doing, what have they been planning, the routes, the loot paths, and also the contestations that we're going to be seeing.
Yeah, look, we always love to see the off-spawn fights in these games, and I can promise you, the analysts are already breaking a lot of it down. There is plenty all around the map that we will be jumping right into. For me, I'm very excited to see the evolution of some of these teams. Yeah, we have a bunch of new teams, but we have some teams returning to the fray and looking to level up from what we saw last season. It's going to be a fun time for sure. You know, we already talked a bit about our predictions, but there are still plenty of other players on the map who will be looking to prove many of us wrong. So let's just hop right in.
The battle bus is ready, the engine is started, and these players are going to begin dropping in now. The question is, who is going to be able to have that dominance in the first match? It's so important to kind of showcase what you're capable of against your opponents here. We have teams being contested all over the map, but we're going to be looking specifically at the Daily Bugle here, as Astro is actually going to get some nice tags with his burst assault rifle right off the start.
Yeah, I just want to just point out, right, it seems to be the return of UK Fortnite, right? UK Fortnite is back in. We have Astro and Michael, of course, over here. We have Wolfies landing with Asa. Asa isn't actually from the UK, but nevertheless, I'm still going to stick with it. And the battle at the Daily Bugle will be one to follow for sure. Michael and Astro are a very experienced team at this POI. They've been landing here basically all of Chapter 3, and so they know how to deal with it. A team that definitely knows how to deal with their off-spawn battles. Vortex and Hycris taking down Hydra and Belusi here. This was one the analysts sort of gave us some insight into, but the battle's not done. You can see DKS and Deciptos up on the hill, ready to strike.
Ready to strike, but another player that's ready to strike here, it's Nebs, as they do have the player advantage. Nebs now with one elimination alongside Marine, looking to see if they can finish this off. I believe they're all up against Noah Riley here, so this is going to be interesting.
The interesting thing, right, is that the longer this fight takes, the more opportunity and time the Greasy Grove team has to come in third part. And you can see in the distance Nipsey and Coop coming in and getting involved. And so we're going to see things wrap up very shortly. You can see in this replay, Nebs off-spawn initially picking up that Stinger SMG and absolutely dealing with Reason. And so I'm sure Reese said, look, it's going to be maybe 4-2. They're going to be the ones to win out of here. We'll see whether that trend continues. But in the meantime, it does seem like Nebs and Marine are in favor.
Nebs trying to find an angle on Noah, but if you look at the bottom right on the mini-map, there is a duo. It's the duo from Greasy that are coming close here. So this could be dangerous for the duo as Nebs getting straight into the action, going to the box of his opponent, Noah Rayleigh, but unable to connect the big shot yet. And you can see now the third party has gotten closer and closer, and it's just gotten that much more risky.
Yeah, this fight concludes. Nebs and Marine will be your victors. Obviously one of the newer teams this season, but they will be well aware of the threat posed by Coop and Nipsey. I spoke to Marine just before the competition started today, and he said, yep, we know. The Greasy team are going to push us. They're going to take the grapple gloves and look to try third party us, and that's exactly what's happening in game one, so they should be ready for it. And nevertheless, a bit of a stalemate now, no immediate action, but this is going to be something for everyone at home to be following throughout the day. Will that continue to play out? Will Nebs and Marine even win that fight against No Riley and Vidil, or No Riley and Reason again today?
Ooh, switching over though to the center of the map by Loot Lake here. Merstash Malibuka that land on the east side here where the Collider used to be by Loot Lake, and they've gotten into a quick engagement here. Actually gonna knock down one now, giving them the player advantage, but they have to be careful as the third party's coming in. Merstash is down to just 1 or 2 HP to work with, but Padnata now playing it out as a solo, trying to decide what the strategy is here. Malibuka has lost Merstash. Now it's 2 solos going head-to-head at the third party. Lays down shots. Malibuka, though, has the advantage here. Just has to connect 1 quick shot, but doesn't even need to as the opponents take him out.
Yeah, Uguay being the one to take that elimination away from Malibuka over from the distance. And I know Reese was talking about this earlier in the show, but it is just so ironic that Malibuka, Merstash, a team that is just so dominant in those later phases of the game, just don't seem to be able to have things locked down when it comes to off-spawn battles. They are shaky there. That is the weakest aspect of their game. Their drops at this area, Loot Lake, aren't necessarily the greatest. And so I think we're going to continue to see this sort of throughout the day where Uguay and Tayson are constantly looking to third-party that fight.
I mean, that's going to be the best thing they can do, right? Starting off so strong with a third party picking up an elimination is kind of going to set them up for what they're going to do the rest of the day, having that uncontested north side of Loot Lake. The only thing is, what are their opponents going to do? What's Merstash and Malibuka going to change to not get put into this situation again? I mean, is there something they can do? As if they do keep getting into this engagement, I mean, it's going to be incredible for Uguay and Tayson having that free damage every game. But going back to Reality Falls, we have Vortex, Chris back into another engagement, already with 2 eliminations, but looking to up that count or make it 4. Chris continuing to look for an angle here, seeing if he can connect something. He has a good amount of loot, has a decent amount of materials, but the question is, does he need these eliminations? Do they want to take this engagement? Or would it be more worth it to just disengage and get the rotate on, as the zone has appeared a bit further away, so they will have to make a rotate. And now they're just using more and more time, but they know this as Chris gets an amazing edit, getting the shot onto his opponent, cracking him down, getting that elimination for Vortex, and now they do have the player advantage, but be careful, the third party is coming in.
Well, for the people watching at home, there's so much going on in this game. Of course, the lobby starts with so many players, and we can't possibly keep up with it all. So we are joined by the wonderful Mini Miner to give us a nice in-game update on actually Hen and Mr. Savage in this game.
Thank you so much, Levin. Now, we saw Merstash and Malibuka fighting just outside of their drop spot. So many teams looking to capitalize on that for Surge tags. Hen being one of them, particularly when you're uncontested like Hen and Savage are at Tilted Towers. They need to use these Surge tags as opportunities right off the rip. They're looking for those tags. They're building up as high as they can and trying to get that damage done early, which is so important for this team. So make sure to look out for them later on when they're above the Surge.
Thank you so much, Mini Miner, and I love that. Levin, it's correct, right? When you have a POI, a point of interest like Tilted Towers, uncontested, I'm not worried about loot. I'm not worried about materials. What I'm worried about in that situation is getting enough damage for Storm Surge and being able to rotate to the position you want to be at as quickly as possible. So seeing that they have the opportunity to get those tags, I mean, it's It's looking good for Mr. Savage and Hen.
Yeah, of course, there's going to be many people who may be watching the FNCS or high-level competitive Fortnite lobby for the first time. And for the people who don't necessarily know what Storm Surge is, essentially Storm Surge is a sort of feature mechanic in the game that means that players in the lobby have to deal a certain amount of damage to stay above a certain threshold. And that threshold will very much determine who stays in the game, right? If you are below that damage threshold, the lobby begins to deal damage to players until the lobby reaches a certain player limit. And so throughout the day, we'll constantly be updating you on those players and how they fare when it comes to the Storm Surge leaderboard per se. And so, yeah, we'll certainly have to watch out for whether or not Hen and Mr. Savage can be high on that surge. But this is something that's going to be very good to see for Floki and Clement, the team that actually won round 3 of this first qualifier, coming into round 4 looking incredibly hot and very much so looking to deal with their surge, as you see, just taking shots at players, looking for good positions to get some free damage, basically, on players rotating all around the map.
It's all about having that high elevation. If you're elevated on a hill, on a building, on something that gives you a wide area of vision to go for those tags, it's crucial to get damage without risking too much. You can take engagements like we saw Vortex and his duo do in Reality Falls, but it's a little risky. You use more materials, use more shields, and you could end up getting eliminated. So being able to get those tags from afar is almost the best way to do it, but the difficulty is getting yourself in one of those positions quickly enough. As we switch over to Hardfind and ADN here, who seem to be doing a bit of a late rotate. They are in the Logjam Lotus here, cruising around, flying around, drifting through the wind as they kind of decide what's the rotate gonna be.
Of course, Queasy and Joe's dog here on our screens. Very much a team to watch out for in all of the FNCS this season. One of the biggest favorites to win it all. And to be able to say that about a team so early into the competition just lets you know how strong they are and how highly they are regarded. Of course, the zone pulling towards that east means that they do have a distance to go. But I can assure you, when it comes to making rotational decisions, Queasy does not struggle in that regard.
That zone that we just saw as well, for me, Levin, it's looking pretty dangerous. A majority of the southern side of the zone is water, with a little bit of islands here and there. North side, you have the Daily Bugle. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities for a dangerous zone here. So if I was these duos, I'd start thinking ahead, seeing what the game plan is going to be and see if they can get that rotation quickly, especially if you don't have an item like the grapple glove. But fortunately enough for Mr. Savage, he is going to have that grapple glove, the only mobility item currently in the game. There is a lot of that natural environmental mobility. However, for items, just the grapple glove. So if you have that, I mean, you can rotate a little later if you want, take a bit of time, but saving them for the end game is what's important. As we switch over to default here, and Stormy Right in the Jonesies, trying to take some shots on some duos that are rotating in a bit late.
Yeah, taking some shots over towards Kiduo and Yusri. Yusri hitting back hard right there. That's actually a duo that's newly formed as well. We'll try and highlight all of those newer formed duos, right? There are a bunch of them in the lobby. Of course, Default and Stormy Right, I think one of the more interesting things to note about this team on our screens is that Stormy Right is an FNCS champion. Many people forget it. It does feel like after their victory in the FNCS last year, their performances start to maybe go a bit downhill. And last season, we didn't really see him in the FNCS at all. And so to see him now here with Default in the first round 4 of the season is a very positive note.
And if you want to learn more about the veterans of Fortnite competitive, you can check out some of the stories on FN Comp Official. The new Fortnite competitive Instagram page has some nice interviews with some veteran players of Fortnite competitive. So you can learn all about the backstories, training routines, what they do to prepare for a tournament like this, where so much is on the line. But getting back into the game here, 11 talked about it, Storm Surge now with 77 players up is going to get possibly activated here as the zone comes to a close. So these players now have 1 minute and 40 seconds to get that damage or continue with the amount they have. As right now, the duo on the screen, 303 above, but switching over to Chicho and Trulex, 20 below, they have to get a bit of tags.
Yeah, 20 below is not a good spot to be at for this team. A very established team, a team that has a very consistent early to mid game on most occasions. And this is how they do it. Of course, Trulex, a very experienced veteran IGL in the game. someone who's won an FNCS. Chico, a younger, newer Serbian player who's recently sort of burst onto the scene, but he is talented. And his ability to hit shots on players will come in clutch for them throughout the remainder of the game. Someone who's no stranger to hitting big shots. Wolfies, of course, Wolf God on our screens here, playing alongside Acid this season. They've survived the battle at the Bugle. I think they disengaged from that POI. But of course, seeing Wolfies back in the FNCS picture is a huge thing. Of course, second place in the World Cup way long time ago. And now looking to try and put his name back on the map when it comes to top EU competitive Fortnite. But he'll have to deal with his Storm Surge damage if he wants any chance of doing that. Of course, Zohan and Splashy gonna make that very difficult for them sitting up above.
Zohan and Splashy, though, they also need that damage. I mean, the above by 25 damage, but that can quickly turn around for the worst is now 41 above. They want to look for an angle here, look for a connection shot from that striker pump. You can do a good amount of damage in just one shot, but you have to connect it correctly as now they're both taking shots back and forth, looking for angles, looking for connections through the builds. As Asa right now looking to see if he can make something happen. Might play a little bit more aggressive, but I don't think that the end goal for these duos is to get eliminations. It's more just get above that damage threshold to not get taken out by the Storm Surge.
Yeah, and this is the biggest worry I think many people would have had for Wolfies and Asa. The fact that, although they maybe pack a punch here and there, do they have the nous to deal with their Storm Surge in efficient ways? Of course, now they are above that threshold and it has reached 70 players and now just below that. And so the Surge will stop ticking for the meantime, but very much it's not left them in the greatest of positions. Asa with just 18 builds, not the greatest loadouts, no spare shields. This is shambles. That is what we mean when it comes to shambles in these kind of lobbies. They do not have much to work with whatsoever.
Now looking back at Tayson and Uguay, the favorites for the analyst desk here in today's tournament. Currently looking great. I mean, they have a good amount of loot, have the shields, have even the damage done. But now it's all about that positioning. Where are they going to place themselves on this map as the zone is getting more and more risky now? A majority of the zone being in this kind of watery island area. You can even see Mr. Savage now decides to take a swim. It's going to be a bit hot outside, wants to wash off, get clean, but that can quickly get a bit dangerous as the players that are already in the zone are looking back right now and they want that damage.
Yeah, you can see just how much they're trying to greed their way in, not wanting to use too many of the materials and or charges of their grapple gloves, but they will be forced to get to the Monument Island. And now that they are here, the opportunity to hold teams, you can see Pen looking back towards High Chris, seeing if he can get some shots off. Nevertheless, though, they will now use the Monument statue to glide their way into zone. And we'll see what position they take up. That will be huge for how the rest of the game goes for them. Trippin and Thomas, a team who we haven't necessarily seen much of in this game, but a team who we will definitely see much more of across today's games. One that very much should be high up in those standings out of Rave Cave.
I got kind of scared there, Levin, when I saw so many duos flying, using that sort of wind tunnel at the Monument to rotate into zone. I mean, there was so many duos already boxed up, looking back, taking shots, but luckily enough, I don't believe any of them got eliminated. Just a bit of shield taken out. But looking at Thomas and Tripper in here, positioned well, kind of waiting for the zone to appear, thinking what their rotate could be, what the strategy could be for this next zone. But Kiddo has a good amount of vision, a little bit higher up. Sometimes you want to use a bit extra materials just so you have that extra vision and you can see kind of your surroundings better, where your opponents are, what locations are more free to rotate through, more open. It's really all about that vision and thinking ahead of time as we switch over to Joe's Dog and Queasy.
Look at just how many players are congested in this area. If you look at the bottom right, the little mini-map, there's so many little arrows. There's so many teams in this general area that congest the side of the zone. And it's just going to make it so much more difficult for the teams who really don't have the grapple glove. Queasy and Joe's Dog do. And so when the time comes to rotate, they should be all right. But we definitely cannot say the same for some of the teams around them. And maybe they are aware of that and realize that there are some opportunities for eliminations and refreshes when possible. But this is going to be a very crazy rotation for a lot of these players who are going to have to traverse across the oceans, the rivers. It becomes very difficult. But if you're one of those players that is in the safe zone and on a higher elevated layer, like Floki and Clement, the opportunity to look at these players swimming their way on in is a great chance to try and get some eliminations maybe. And you're seeing that right here on Floki's screen.
What I can't wait to see, Levin, is those moving zones, zone 6, 7, when the players are going to have to rotate through this interesting environmental side of the map here where they have to swim, maybe even build over the water, or really do some rotations that they might not be too used to. As we look at Malibuka and Merstash, who are kind of stuck on the edge of zone here in an incredibly dangerous position, running out of mats quickly. One shot left for Malibuka, ultimately going to go down now. Merstash playing as a solo. They were forced to rotate late, and due to that, all the duo, they're already based up in zone. We're just staring at them, taking shots, laying down the rain from above, and now Merstash is forced to play it out as a solo.
Yeah, their game went off the rails and they were never really able to recover. You can see with just 7 builds, there isn't really much Mustache can do. He's going to try and harpoon some loot over in towards him. The materials will be the most important thing, but with such low HP, he's just got to be so careful about how he goes about it. Pickle on our screen here, really as well in a similar situation to Mustache, where it just doesn't have much to work with. No longer has Melda, his teammate, by his side. And so with 123 below Surge, not many materials, enough to maybe keep him by. This is just such a difficult position to be in as a solo. And it isn't a position he'll be in for much longer. Taken out rather swiftly as well. But the game continues for the rest of our teams.
Fifth zone has appeared now on the southern side of the map here.
Nobody's in it.
Literally.
Nobody's in zone.
I was going to say a majority of the players are north, but it's not a majority. It's every single player is outside of this fifth zone. So the rotations for this half in, half out is going to be incredibly difficult. Might even be better to wait a little bit, go early. I mean, what's the correct decision, Levin? There's so many options, so many opportunities, but what you don't have is a lot of mobility items, only the grapple glove. So making a rotate like this, you have to kind of decide, do I rotate late? Do I recycle some tarps? What do I do?
I think for the teams who maybe don't have a grapple glove, you're going to be looking to wait for other people to build ahead of you, recycle those tarps, look to elevate as you enter that zone, as you don't want to be stuck down beneath the ground with everybody else. And for the teams who do have a grapple glove, it's easy sailing, easy swinging. Just look for something to connect to. Try and stay high so you don't get caught between some builds. And we'll see if Hen and Savage will do that, exactly that. They make sure they elevate just before they leave. They can grapple along other people's builds and get in easy peasy. For Thomas and Trippin, who are able to get in a lot sooner than other teams, you can see postured up here, they're just looking around. Thomas seeing if he can find a shot. If you give him a chance, he will hit it. A nice little crack there to the shields. He needs some shields for himself. A Siphon would do him wonders right now, not working with 200 effective HP. But they do need to also stay aware of their surroundings, as players will look at them, the height team. But you can just see Thomas just looking for something, anything. But actually, it seems to have cost him here, taking some damage and now no shields to actually get himself back up. And now the journey to a victory royale for this team becomes even more difficult.
No shields to work with here. Down to just one shield. 101 effective HP for Thomas HD. And on the high ground, we have Queasy and Joe's dog. But you know how dangerous it is, Levin, to hold on to that high ground from first moving from zone 6. Especially if you don't have as many materials.
The big thing is, though, that the rest of the lobby won't have many materials as well. A lot of these players are going to have to use the materials as, you know, the zone is on water. You have to build to get through for a lot of these teams. And so things might get a bit difficult for the ones below them. But they very much understand how to hold height. We'll see how they do in that regard, if they can hold it strong and what they're working with. Mr. Savage, though, and Hen, very much so, looking to try to stay alive. The key for that duo is whether they can work in tandem. Oftentimes, coming in strong. Like Takara said, they're on fire, they're feeling it. So many eliminations in that first game is a great way to start things off. So we're going to kick it to the death to break it all down.
I was not prepared. A double-digi elimination game to start the FNCS. Okay, I'm down. I'm here for it. Hi, Chris and Vortex. I'm here for it.
Things got hot right off the start as well, right? For them, off the early game. Remember, this is what we talked about at the top of the show as well, the fact that they are hyper-aggressive. Hyper-aggressive off spawn, and it seemed to pay off for them already fighting right off the rip.
Yeah, they were pretty much just able to clean up the whole way through. Vortex especially, I think, just making some crucial shots, taking over that high ground control towards the late game, and they're just moving every single time with those Storm Surges in the circles.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw them claim that height right there, and I actually thought the drop was premature right at that end when it was that 2v2 situation. It seemed like Hycrus dropped a little bit too early there. I was getting a little bit shaky there, but of course Vortex clutched up at the same time. Huge win for them. The early game, though, I was hyping it up. It was good at the same time. They are looking to 50-50 off spawn in the tree side of Reality Falls, like we said earlier, and they do it better than anyone. As you can see, the drop is absolutely perfect. They land clinically for the chest, and of course, Hydro and Belusi are there to 50-50 at a time. We saw them, of course, win that. That fight's quick, that fight's over, but then remember, they also went in to push DKS and Bad Sniper after that. So this is like the start. This is 3 eliminations off the rip for them. 6 points already.
And that's the thing about these early elims, building that momentum. That's what I was trying to touch on earlier. And, well, if there's one thing that I can definitely say has been established between this duo, it's that they came out swinging early.
Absolutely.
I love that you called that out, too. Like, right from the beginning of the show, you knew. You're like, I can already tell, looking at everything, watching all these matches beforehand.
It's the first one.
It's the first one. People are going to be aggressive. Let's take a look at our standings, though. Let's see how things are going. So remember, we want to watch that line right there, the top 5 advance to finals. Any duos that make it above that line will automatically go to the finals. You don't have to think about anything else. They ain't got to worry. Starting us off, 54 points.
Wow.
That's where I want to be if I start a competition.
I mean, that's a massive game. And me and you will jump up there high. We'll call it High Crease and ZKX. I don't know, some rubbish like that. You know, we'll be up top. It'll be okay. That's a massive game for them. Michael and Astro, a bit of a surprise for them, given the fact they have, I think, 3 other teams fighting off spawn. But Queasy and Joe's dog, a.k.a. Vino, very impressed with the solo clutch. We actually saw, I think, high ground control at the start from Vino at that point, all the way up. But then, from there on, unfortunately, like we said, Queasy went down, but a massive solo play all the way through from Joe's dog, unfortunately named.
Joe's dog, it almost looked like he wasn't even alone out there with the way that he was moving. It's incredible to think that he lost Queasy so early on during these early contestants inside of the circle. And more importantly, he went from 0 elims and shot it up to 5 out of nowhere. That is a huge 10-point swing to add on top of the fact that it's not like their placement was bad in this first game anyway.
And that fight right there, that refresh they got was huge because there was tons of med mist he managed to get from that, which I think added about 15 to 20 seconds of him sitting in zone while healing there, which again, other teams are going down, right? Other teams are being knocked out at that time. So a bunch of massive placement points from there. Of course, in 4th as well, Nebs and Marine. Again, another fight we talked about at the top of show, where of course we saw him going up against Reason and Vidil early. This time, you know, their coach predicted 4-2 in the favor of Reason. 1-0 so far in the favor of Nebs and Marine, though.
And they're definitely feeling pretty hot off of this one, because I think that maybe a lot of people might be undermining this team to a certain extent. So when you're able to come out, pack a punch like these two, where I think that is something to certainly keep in mind moving forward. But also, this shot control, I think, was really important when they were trying to take some of that low ground, mid ground into the later games.
Absolutely. You can see also the team from Greasy Grove there, Nipsey and Coop, pushing in to third party, because this fight is going to be happening game after game after game, and the teams that are around them who have no one to fight, they're going to say, hey, I'm going to stay on that high ground around you, take a couple tags, get some damage off, and push on in. But look, they pushed in, but look how it ended up for the leaderboard. Nebs and Marine, of course, managing to come out on top.
I just can't help but think that Hycrus and Vortex, they were basically just fighting the entire lobby at this point. I mean, I'm still just in awe at the fact that they're really able to establish 11 elims right off the bat.
I'm really curious because, again, to touch on the point, you're talking about momentum here to start the game. Do you think they're going to keep this going? Like, to start so strong, is it just like gas all the way? Or are we thinking, okay, we got a good one first. Let's just try and play it slow. What do you think?
Well, no point taking your foot off the pedal at this point. I think it's all gas from these two. And if they're able to keep this kind of surgence up in the leaderboards, or at least stay at the top, it's going to be really tough for anybody else to catch up, especially if they're dropping 11 elims.
Double digits. You know what?
Okay, Reese is going to play spoiler.
I think they're going to probably keep winning off spawn when it comes to like the Hydro Belusi situation, right? There's 2 of them there landing at the same time, 50-50 like we saw. But do I think they can keep winning when it comes to like the other team, like DKS, and we've got Deceptos there. There's teams that are third partying in around this fight as well. We saw Nefreezy moving in as well. I don't know. I think they're probably going to keep doing good in the Belusi fight, But overall, you can't do that every game, man. You can't do that every game.
After dropping double-digit elims, you have to imagine that all these other teams are also going to want to start playing spoiler, because you never want to let the team that's coming out with a hot finish like this keep it going.
Yeah, and I think Hen and Mr. Savage, another team that we talked about a lot, uncontested off spawn. Seemed okay there. I saw a bunch of eliminations in the mid-game as well, and they were looking really good. But again, it is the classic case of what we talked about. It ended up being solo play. Savage goes down, Hen clutches this time, the other way around.
I think what really made it tough for a few of these duos was just that rotation coming around Monument Island, because getting stuck on that beach area, the teams that were able to get across early on into the circle safety, so many pot shots that were being taken from high ground positioning.
Absolutely.
You do love to see it. Now this is a nice taste test, right? This is a nice little sampler, game number 1, but nobody panic. We still have 5 more games to go on the day, right? So we could see these leaderboards change up pretty significantly. I'm excited to keep the ball rolling, so I don't want to